If we can see a little hope, we can see the sun. If we can mend our broken hearts, hugging courage from despair, then we can grasp a brave new start and fight our way to anywhere. We've suffered the lack of might, yet we have survived the darkest day. Now all we need is a little light, and we will find our way.
Forward to present-day Negro youth. Forward, always forward. Forward is a command. Look not on deck yesterday. A present battle is at hand. Raise your voices, splendid tones, so sleeping men can hear. Don't be a backslider in the ranks. Be a pioneer. Don't hold behind your lips words that you wish to say. Dip your torch in the oils of courage, light it, and lead the way. I know your burden is heavy, and your goal seems not in sight. Travel with your heavy burden, and your weary road will lead to light. Forward along life's rugged road, believing that right is might. When the road seems dark ahead of you, self-confidence will be your light. Even if it seems that your weary path is hidden from the sun, never lay down your weapon. Until the battle is won, again I say forward. Forward like fighting men, through life's mountains are steep and rugged. With courage you can ascend. Without that you cannot fail. Other men will raise with eagerness to follow your fearless trail.
Thank you very much, sisters. Let's give a hand to Sister Ernestine and the two young sisters. Thank you, Sister Ernestine. And now, sisters and brothers, let's bring you the light that has shown us the way for so long. None other than our revered elder, our revolutionary elder, Dr. John Henrik Clarke.
Of course, I'm very pleased to be here again and to let you know that our ranks have dwindled to a precious few. We who choose to be boldly honest about our fight for liberation, and we who see so many opportunities going by the board unappreciated. Now, every time I have been here in the last few years, I have spoken on different aspects of the same subject. Can African people save themselves? I should be angry enough to say African people had better save themselves because no one else is going to do it. Yet the subject, since I was here last, has grown so tremendous until nearly everything I have written or spoken of about this subject need to be rewritten at this juncture in history. We're on the brink of the 21st century. Sadly, we were more together in the 19th century before the end of slavery than we are right now. We reached a point dangling between Pan-Africanism and integration, where we're not too clear about our direction. I would like to turn to a poem by Paula Murray. She said that freedom is a thing like amber wine that lures man down a path of skulls where they kill the dream but not the dreamer. Too many times we have forgotten that while there's been an attempt to kill the dream, the dreamers are still out there. And the dream is still the same, for freedom, for liberation. And I think we've gotten confused on this point because we follow foreigners, fakers, and fools who behind all of their rhetoric have contempt for us. And we let people who devote all their lives to trying to find a better way die broke and alone. Now, when people are giving you great plans for salvation, and you're buying these great plans because they're delivered to you by people who put on a great show, you forgot that men like Chancellor Williams laid out a far better plan in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization. And part of it also in another book, The Rebirth of African Civilization. You get so involved with the show, people can go to Washington and entice more than 1 million men, speak over 2 hours, and the word Africa never passes his lips. Yes, sir. He mentions Egypt in the context that Egypt is not a part of Africa. And if you're going to mention Egypt, he must show the interrelationship of Egypt to the rest of Africa, or leave the subject alone. You either know it or leave it to someone who knows it. He is using catchwords to play on your emotions. He's not delivering anything but a collection plate. Now, if African people are to save themselves, they have to save themselves from the internal phonies and the external phonies. They got to save themselves from all religions, because all of them are participated in your enslavement. If they participated in your enslavement, I'm not asking you to leave them. I'm asking you to convert them into an instrument of your liberation, or throw them into the ash can of history and go on your way. Because you had a strong spirituality before man had any of it. Before Christianity, Islam, or the Hebrew faith. I'm not talking about a man walking the earth without spirituality. You can no more walk this earth without spirituality. Because this is what sustains you. This is what divides you between you and a dog. You are a thinking animal, but you'll stop thinking. You follow foreigners, fakers, and fools, while men work themselves to death, trying to lay out a plan for you, and you didn't even read it. And people insult you, and you applaud them because you don't understand the nature of their insult. Now, can African people save themselves? They got to save themselves from the worst of themselves. They got to save themselves from their phonies and the foreign phonies too. They got to save themselves from pretty Jesse Jackson. Yes, sir. Who went to the ocean white and couldn't swim over. But he had nothing to swim. Had nothing to read either. Now here, when the man had the attention of a nation twice, no one expected him to become president of the United States, but they expect him to set in motion a force for liberation that will serve both black and white without contradicting either one. And he could have done it. But he had to crawl like a whipped dog back into the Democratic Party. When he needed no role in the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. Finally, they found another patsy that they thought they could use. Colin Powell. Black people still don't know who in the hell is Colin Powell yet. You act as though he's one of us. Ethnically not one of us. Politically not one of us. It's a light-skinned black man passing for white. Now, I've known people who were in school with him, and he was always against his dark-skinned classmates. You got to know how to do your research. Who is this man? He was always calling dark-skinned students bastards. Until finally he faced a real dark-skinned, what Francis Wells would call crystal black. Now he said, now listen, SOB. You need to look up a word in the dictionary. A bastard I could never be. I ain't mixed with nothing. Black people. You boast about being mixed English, mixed Jewish. Your wife, blue-green eyes. Now, where you from? You participated in the invasion of Grenada, a black country that might have had 12 guns if they had that many.
It was rusty.
Grenada was so unprepared militarily that a good Boy Scout troop could have taken over to Grenada. They didn't plan to fight anybody. They didn't think they had to fight anybody. They were trying to build an airport so the tourists could come in and they could grin and shine their shoes and serve their food and get a little tip and go home and live. They ain't fighting. They ain't against nobody. Now who gonna fight them? For what? No, he's a part of that. No word of protest. He's a part of the so-called Gulf War. Another fraud and fakery played on the people. He goes to an Arab country. This Arab country who permitted itself to be used just like a Saturday night horse. Permitted America, you can use me, but these are the terms. You can't touch an Arab woman, and none of your women must go around and bathe in suits. Now, here's a country under the ambassadors of the United States, but with enough sense to tell the United States, I have certain rules in my country you better obey or I'll not cooperate. Too many times people come among us and violate all the rules. And too many times we fail to establish the fact that we are sovereign people, or should be, and we have certain rules of conduct and a certain thing we do not stand. No African ruler has gotten this law down except briefly an African thug who did a lot of bad and a little good, named Idi Amin. He killed the wrong people. He wasn't a Ugandan in the first place. He was from the Sudan and a Muslim. He had contempt for non-Muslims. And yet he did the one thing he needed to do, to tell the people in his house I am the master of my house. If you have no loyalty to this house, I will put you out. And he did. Now, among the wrong things he did that one thing right. I'm sovereign here. And if a black American came there with good intention, he would give him a Ugandan passport at the airport. And some still have it. Because he understood something about nation. Now, I'm not dwelling on his personality because I got more important things to do. But look at the invasion of Panama. Colin Powell is chief of staff now. No objection. He goes to Panama. He kills mostly the black Panamanians. And they're bury them in an open grave. But he did not understand that the Panama Canal was built mainly by Caribbean people.
Yes, sir.
And that 5,000 died building that canal, of which 4,000 were Jamaicans.
Yes, sir.
He's boasting about his Jamaican-ness when it's convenient.
Yes, sir.
He's not even a loyal Jamaican. When it's time it's convenient to impress white people that he's different from black Americans, he brings out his Jamaican-ness.
Yes, sir.
Now, who's he think he's kidding? Now, if he was real Pan-African, you know what he'd do in Panama? Take out that American uniform and say, my people built this canal and built this country and died to get that canal. I resigned from the army and I apply to rule this nation in the name of my own people who died to build it.
Yes, sir.
And that's a dream and a supposition, but you know damn well he ain't gonna do that. So we're gonna save ourselves. We're gonna have to understand certain personalities who parade and profit on blackness when it's convenient and forget about us when it's not convenient. And he's going all over this country lecturing from $10,000 to $25,000 per lecture, saying the same thing over and over again. This is the greatest country on earth. And I am loyal to this country. He's not criticizing the fact that the whole Caribbean area has been programmed into oblivion by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. The dollar colonialism have reduced that country to a vassalage and to a colonialism worse than anything England has ever done. And England is the leading monster when it comes to colonizing a people, colonizing the mind of a people. Now, he will use this when it's convenient, yet he tells America, you are the greatest. The greatest are now dismantling the independent states in Africa one by one, buying up land and facilitating it that other people can do the same thing. Africa will soon be under another kind of colonialism worse than the previous one. The president of Ghana came to the United States. He talked a little pablum nationalist stuff among the blacks. But he got out of Wall Street, he talked corporation. He sold the gold mines of Ghana, which belonged to the people. He sold that without consulting the people. And yet he's a hero to you because you don't know him. You got a new African, you got a new African American, and you got a new Caribbean person. That if we're going to survive, we're going to have to put them in their grave.
Yes, sir.
We're going to start playing with them, start picking with them. Now, This brings me to, let's deal with Trinidad right now. If we're going to save ourselves, then we're going to have to understand the sacredness of land and property. Here's a bunch of coolies who came to Trinidad to do farm work. The British gave them land, gave them support, gave them bank loans that didn't give the blacks.
Yes, sir.
Until they got an economic start. They were helped by individual blacks. They united and turned on the very blacks who helped them.
Yes, sir. Race first.
Now look at Guyana, look at Chetty Jagan. Chetty Jagan, when he came into power the first time, I had 2 blacks in his cabinet. I don't know what he's got in his cabinet now, but I know there's no black holding a major cabinet post. And yet when he came in, he said, right here, we was in this country last, the winner will not take all. He came to power and took all. Do we understand that we are too kind to even protect ourselves? We've extended our humanity to the wrong people, and we will never save ourselves with the notion, well, they're just like us, after all, color doesn't matter. Yeah. Or why are you on the bottom? It matters to that man on the job who holds you on the bottom. But if you have a central core, a central theme that you must follow, Pan-Africanism, African awareness, African nationalism, and a concept of a cultural social order based on the best of African traditional societies. Europe has nothing to offer to your salvation. Marxism has failed the Europeans. You know it's going to fail you. And you quite forget, because you have not dug deep enough in your history, you had Marxism, Christianity, and the Hebrew faith long before the first European had any shoes. And we're going to save ourselves. We have to save ourselves from ourselves. We have to stop lying about ourselves. And we have to look into our history and find examples we can use to free ourselves. We have to stop lying. Now, you know, one of the things which I found that parade in Washington so distasteful to me, that it's a lie. It's based on the concept that every single black man has to atone to every single black woman. On its face, it's a hypocritical lie. I know too many black men who took care of their families as best they could with that little salary and went home to one woman and didn't try to chase everyone on the block. I know some who, you know, made those tips and bowed and grinned and sent their children through school. And once their children got an education, they wouldn't even introduce people to their uneducated father and mother. These same children, pampered old ladies, and catering to people, bowing and scraping to get them through, waiting on the table and talking to them, and finally there's some person, you know, I got a boy just about your size, and he's got some suits he worn. I want him begging and grinning, so we can use them, you know. That's torment, but that's surviving too. How else the boy gonna get this a decent suit? He can't play with those little tips. The price a whole generation of black people paid to bring us to this point. We won't even read the history they've written for us or reward them for their sacrifice. And we're being programmed out of jobs. Very soon there'll be no porter job. Very soon some mechanical broom will be sweeping the floor. survival jobs we had just disappeared. Go on the train where you used to find that little courteous black steward, you know, who will make suggestions. And, you know. Now you got an evil white woman. A steward. You got her down in the dining car. She can't wait tables. She got no curry. Got no cool. Can't make a decent suggestion. Now there's one thing you got to say. We mastered service. There ain't no use for driving us out of service. We did it well. You know? But when we don't have these basic survival jobs and the whole world being computerized, where you gonna go? Now, what leader is asking that question? You take 1 million men down to Washington. Do you know the danger of assembling 1 million men? Washington can have a chemical substance kill every damn one of them. They can have it injected into them. They may die 10 days after they get home, may die on their way home, but they got enough skill to kill them all. You're going to assemble all of them down there. Watch your damn ego. Don't strategize nothing. All right, now let's figure something. Over 2 million men, and they spent an average of $150 a piece. Add all of this up, and we can buy supermarkets for every black community in this country. Anybody ever thought about that? Anybody ever thought that we spend into the American economy more than the gross national income of Canada? We don't own a symphony orchestra. I've gone to Finland. It has about 7 or 8 million people. They have 3 symphony orchestras, 2 national theater companies, all those things. 7 million can have that. You mean 30 million can't have 1 symphony orchestra? You have one national theater group? Then what happened to our money? If we spent $500,000 a year on potato chips, and anybody with a decent stove and a skillet can make potato chips, I was making them before people gave my name. I used to make soap before I was 10 years old. I was the little boy that made the soap for the community. I've always had responsibility. This is what has happened to our children. We do not give them responsibility at an early age. We don't even teach them how to clean their room. So your main responsibility at least to keep your room clean. Keep your shoes in order. That's your little country in the world. That's your sovereign territory. All I'm asking you to keep it in order. And do that but long before you play at anything. Don't turn on no television here until all of your chores are done. Then do it selectively. If they have no mission in life, it's because we have not given them a mission. Yes, sir. We have not explained the society that they live in to them. Now, if you examine all that whole day of speech making as well as the over 2-hour speech of Farrakhan, not a major speech was made, not a major statement was made. Nothing that we can take away and use. Making black men pledge they're not going to do this, but not going to hit his wife. Hell, I ain't hit nobody. 2 wives, and both of them could use a little hitting, but I didn't. Maybe that's what went wrong. Now, There was no hitting women in Africa. Now, all of these traits we picked up away from Africa. Of course, we need to eliminate it. The very idea of hitting a woman is distasteful to me personally. And I've seen some who try to provoke you into doing so. Now, if I have done this, I've educated both of my two children, took care of my daughter who passed, until she passed. Both of them through college. Took care of my wife when she had a Volvo car and a mink coat. And barely learned to fix a decent meal. Now please tell me, what am I atoning for? I gotta say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what? If I'm sorry for anything, I'm sorry I didn't bring you into line until you either come in line or find some other space. I have always been in favor of women in power. I don't mean root men out of power, but because of my knowledge in African history, I know that in African history they shared power. The woman was the life giver, but her position in society was not always the same. It was equal and important. You get hung up with a whole lot of this Western nonsense. You hung up with white women fighting against white men. Africans don't have that same fight. Now they got a fight. Their fight is mostly men indoctrinated with Western education and Western traits that never existed in Africa. Some people say, Africa is the same as other people that did everything. No, you show me, before the coming of foreigners, you find me one homosexual in Africa. Now, I'll ask for one case. I'll even ask Alice Walker now with her eyes. A brilliant writer now. I'm not arguing about writing. But a poor student of history. He's talking about the African and circumcision of women, throwing them down on a dusty road. She don't know culture in Africa. And first grade female circumcision, the man is not going to have nothing to do with it. He's not even participating, no way he even come near it. This is something women did to women. And I defy you to show me one case of that kind of circumcision before the coming of the Arabs to Africa. One case. Documented. Now there was alteration of the women before, but it did not deprive her of sexual pleasure. The circumcision she's talking about numbs the woman's facility for pleasure. In no way possible can you blame this on a black man. If you blame this on a black man, you don't know the black man's sexual ego. When he performs and says, how am I doing, ladies? He wants an answer. And if he's going to kill her facility to feel anything, he can't get an answer because she don't know. And she gonna blame them on a crime they wouldn't dare commit. Away from home, he's adopted some strange and weird customs. You don't know what end is up. And he have some weird, some of them have some weird ideas about what goes into what, what relationship you can have, and have some question whether it should be a man or woman. We had no question about that in Africa. We were socialized to understand the difference between the two and at what time they could get together. This is why you had no teenage pregnancy in Africa. Until the coming of foreigners, who were mostly rapists. Because in the first place, if you dealt with a girl, you have to deal with her family. Then if you mistreated her, you got to deal with both families. Now, if you think you're going to mistreat her, then you figure out how you're going to deal with 100 uncles, 200 cousins, on both sides. You brought disgrace to her side, you brought disgrace to your side. No, you ain't going to get your hands up before you change your mind. Because the society has built-in safeguards that has been withdrawn. Now, the question is still, can we save ourselves? If we're going to save ourselves, we have to stop separating ourselves based on where the slave ships took us from, put us down, and concentrate on where the slave ships took us from. And the fact that slave ships came from Africa, dropped so many people off in an island called Jamaica, they became Jamaicans. So many Trinidad, they become Trinidadians. The slave ships brought no Trinidadians or Jamaicans, high yarders or low yarders, just African people. Then how did these African people develop differently under different oppressors and think that one is different from the other? One of the interesting things in my recent visit to England to attend the 50th anniversary of the Pan-African Congress, the 5th Pan-African Congress, is my encounter with that Caribbean community in London. That's something different from what you found on the islands, because on the islands they are a numerical majority. And when you are a numerical majority, your psychic makeup is different, though you are a slave. Because you know one day you're going to control the bag. But when you are a majority surrounded by an armed majority, a minority surrounded by an armed majority, you're a little careful how you count your chances. Your psychic makeup is a little different. Your planning has to be a little different. And yet, there was revolts in spite of it. 250 on record. And yet, when we look at the Caribbean revolts, especially Haiti and Jamaica, these were some of the most successful slave revolts in history. Throughout that whole area, Guyana, the Barbies revolt, Brazil, Palmares, Bahia, successful enough to establish an independent African state. Why couldn't we ever establish an independent African state in the United States? Because we had more revolts, but we had one thing working against us that the other one did not have. We did not control the entry and the exit to the revolutionary field. You got to control the supply line, the entry and the exit. But when your enemy can stop people from bringing you something, stop you from getting out, all he needs is time. And his general called starvation will take you over. Now, what did the Jamaicans have? those great hills. You can get in from those hills and look down, and what's coming at you can't see you. You don't need no heavy artillery. Some good, strong rocks will do. A limb from a tree crack its head. But you didn't have that advantage in the United States, where Africans had still another advantage. We have to look at how each one of us had to survive under conditions we did not choose, under historical circumstances we did not understand. We still hadn't even figured out, why are we here? How did we get here in the first place? And why did they do these crimes on us when we had committed none against them? We're not invaded their country. We're not tampered with their women. We're not tried to poison their water. When they came among us, we treated them nicely. We treated them as guests. The guests turned on the host, enslaved the host, and raped the cook. What kind of guest is this? What kind of human being is this? Can we save ourselves from people we have befriended? Africa is not protected even now. Any good army could take over Africa. The African states assumed that they didn't even need coastal defense, which is wrong. Africa not being led by Africans. Africa is led by people with African bodies and European minds. And they have fashioned a state that will never work in Africa. The Western nation state is un-African. The African functions best in a territorial state. Several states, several cultures functioning side by side, interchanging, one fertilizing the other one, one challenging the other without animosity. The presence of another culture sharpens and alerts this culture to the point that it has to be better. It is competition and coalition all at the same time. You can't have this in a nation state cut out by a foreigner who split the cultures in half, borders where there were no borders. I've seen this in Togo and Togo and Ghana. Half of the Ewe people live in Ghana, the other half live in Togo. Here's this kid, little boy, taking some food to his grandma. She's on the other side of the border, and this kid got to go through customs now to take some food to grandma. It's an everlasting credit. I've seen some of the grandmas lose patience, grab the little boy by the nape of his pants, put him right straight over the border, and push the customs office out of her way. Wait with this nonsense. You know this boy. He comes just every morning, a day or so, you know, to bring something, he comes back. You got to examine him coming back as though he's a gold smuggler or something. This is something injected by foreigners. And when we get rid of that and realize that we have some things among ourselves that's good enough to try, how else would we have survived? We were here long before welfare. We lived through the Depression. We made food out of the landscape. We farmed. Now, why not a black fabric company? Do you think we would ever get to the day when our leaders would say, I wear no clothes you don't make. All of a sudden we got to open up a factory, you know, factory. That's what Gandhi did. King didn't know nothing about Gandhi, otherwise he'd have built a great industry. Gandhi was a sharpie, a liar, an actor, but a great Indian nationalist. India first and foremost. He didn't talk all of this nonsense about we all alike, you know, we're all human beings now. And if blacks were in power, they'd do the same thing blacks are doing. That's a lie. That means you don't understand when blacks were in power. When blacks were damn near ruling Spain, the great mistake the blacks made, he left the Catholic Church intact. Had he destroyed that church, he'd still been ruling Spain.
That's right.
That church came to power and laid the basis for the slave trade. When the Pope told Spain and Portugal, you're both authorized to reduce to servitude all infidel people. And to reduce you to servitude, all they have to say is you're an infidel. Outside of the grace of God. That's a misuse of God. Because if God's grace consists of only those people with certain beliefs, then he's not God. Because God is non-partisan, if he exists at all. He had no favorite children. This was but the myth of the curse. Gods don't curse. Cursing is an ungodly act.
Teach.
Now why you get to think that you, because of your black skin, you got cursed? And yet Farrakhan delivered a lecture in Harlem and said that. Said that your eyebrows and your hair supposed to be the same texture. Otherwise some mysterious God have cursed you. And people applauding him. Over the one day, the curse will be lifted. There was no curse at all. You mean to tell me I would offend my mother and my father by wanting to be something they did not make me? I wear the complexion they gave me well, because that's my badge of honor. I dig it, some of that good stuff. Thank them for it. Gives anybody else a problem? That's your problem, not mine. Why can't we look at it this way? And why do people sit silent now and let Farrakhan bring this off? I got a video of this, I got an audio of this, and I got a transcription. Ain't no way in the world he can deny it. And I've talked to some of the eyewitnesses who were right there. Why do you let him produce right in front of your eye a light-skinned brigade? Because you are hung up with the color of the oppressor. We have to deal with ourselves if we are to save ourselves. We would never have a meeting that leaves out women. We do not understand, even away from home, our women have played a major part and still plays a major part in all of our institutions. How do you think Bethune-Cookman College got built? Black women selling 50-cent luncheons at Jim Crow train stations to the blacks who couldn't dine in the dining car. So they had to, reach out the window and buy a box of chicken and, little goodies that goes with it. She built a school. Now, are you going to say that women have no place in our society? You're going to play that kind of fool? And you don't know that women are behind every deacon in the church? Because they're going to elect a new pastor. The deacon goes home and asks his wife. And if his wife don't approve of this election, the pastor don't become pastor of that church. And we're going to leave her out of decision making. But what Farrakhan brought is an Arab thing. The Arabs, like the Europeans, are always afraid of women in power, any kind of authority. That's not our thing. The African men right today who go and prostrate themselves at the door of their mother and will not rise until she gives him her blessings and wish him well for the day. Did this make him less than a man? No. He's paid respect to the woman whose womb he came from. Some of those same men became the fiercest men in battle that you can meet. Justifying something I've always tried to get across to black people, they still don't seem to know. Properly led, properly inspired, and properly equipped, the black man is the greatest human fighting machine on the face of the earth. I got testament on this. I got it from the Germans who had to fight them in the First World War. I got them from the French whose tails they saved. The Germans said that if that African ever gets his hands on you, it's too late to say your prayers. We're cringing at people and saying that, well, the black man had no manhood. Yeah, that proves you don't know your own history. You know nothing about the Herero War in Namibia. Now Namibia used to be Southwest Africa. When the Germans drove 60,000 black women into the desert to cohabit or die, because the Germans wanted to create a bastard race. An old chief named Mendume called all the warring people, all the people, African who had difference with each other, call them together. We are a proud people. We walk the earth carrying the sun on our shoulders. If we let this happen to our women, we will have to put down the sun, and the earth will be in darkness. He took 100,000 men into that battle. He lost 2/3 of them, but he brought those women home. One of the finest acts of courage black men has ever displayed in relationship to the defense of the black woman, unknown to your history. You have read George Padmore. You want to know what to find information? Read a book by George Padmore called How Britain Rules Africa, and another one, Africa, Britain's Third Empire. Padmore, a Trinidadian. What are the pillars of Pan-Africanism? The whole formation of Pan-Africanism as a theory came from 3 Trinidadians. H. Sylvester Williams, C.L.R. James, and George Padmore. Now look at this concept of unity coming from Padmore, Williams, and James. And look at the glaring contradictions. I never knew Sylvester Williams. I did know Padmore, and I did know C.L.R. Beautiful, great human being. But I always asked, look, C.L.R., you're one of the architects of Pan-African and the unification of African, but the 3 great Pan-Africanists never established a lasting relationship with a black woman. That's personal business. Each one had children by a black woman. But no lasting relationship with one. No marriage by one. Now let's look at another contradiction. Because if we're going to save ourselves, we got to deal with our own contradictions. Look at Nkrumah. So anxious for African unity. he's going to marry a woman on the other side of Africa. A Coptic woman from Egypt, more Caucasian than the other Caucasian Egyptians, all the descendants of invaders. When he married her, he thought this would unite North Africa with West Africa. It didn't at all. And if he wanted to unite Ghana and save himself, inasmuch as he is a Twi, in Ghana, there's one family called the Akans. Out of this family came the Asante, the boss, the warriors, the Fantis, the intellects, and the planners, the Tweeds, the technicians. Nkrumah's a contradiction. Tweeds rarely ever aspire to political power. Now all Nkrumah needed to do, because the Asantes had the power, they not only had the power, they had the weapons. They had brought the Fantis in line by punishing the Fantis for renting those slave boats along the coast for such small money and becoming servants of the slave traders. So he didn't have to find a unity between the Fantis and the Tweeds, because that unity already existed. Started with the Fanti Confederacy. But he had no unity with the Akans. All he had to do is to go to the queen mother of the Akans. Say, "Mother, my bed is empty. I have no woman to fix my food. I will leave it to you to choose me a wife." She would have given him the best that was there and the prettiest. And when somebody came after him politically, that Asantehene would say, "Down, boy, he's one of our children now. He's married into our blood. If you touch him, I'll deal with you." And they will deal with you, because they know warfare. In their capital, Kumasi, the British give them space on the sidewalks, because an Asante is not going to walk around you or anybody else. They walk through you. The God people call them the magnificent people. They don't tackle with them anymore. Because whatever they do, they will fight. That's why that Zulu got concession in South Africa on the land question. Nobody else got it. Because they know that he will kick butt. Now, had Nkrumah married into that high group, he's from the low group married to the high group, that would have facilitated some kind of a unity. But inasmuch as he didn't, he drove the opposition toward the strongest group. And the middle group, the Fantis, pulled away from him, because you dare not bring a nation into being without the help of the Fantis, whose propaganda and agitation brought Ghana to the brink of independence before you arrived back from the United States and England. So you see, being away from home, you lose some of your own cultural understanding of how your people operated. Nkrumah's teacher, Joseph B. Dunbar, told Nkrumah that, look, let's wait 12 years after Nkrumah came home to be his secretary. Let's wait 12 years and then we'll ask for independence, because then he figured out we have so many people in school. They're coming home at this rate. So that means at 12 years we have enough people for the embassies, ambassadors, enough technicians. When Nkrumah came to power really in 1947, the country became independent in 1957. So he waited 10 years anyway. Because he brought the country to power not prematurely. He brought it to power without making peace with all of the political and cultural elements that could destroy it. He had forgotten that you come to the seniors and ask for their approval. You dare not run a state without consulting your elders. You go to your elders and do I have your approval and permission to proceed? That's custom and that's culture. They've lived longer than you. They automatically should know more. Once they approve of you, then the people approve of you. This is what is wrong with our leadership in the United States and the Caribbean islands. You don't have a popular leader no place in the Caribbean islands. Popular for what? He sold out his country. What you gonna be popular for? You damn sure don't have one in the United States. NACP is obsolete, Urban League is obsolete. They've done some good work in the past, but now either revise them or throw them in the ash can and go on your way. Update them, get them out of the integration of this case because we've lost enough moving in that direction. Bring them in line with where we are and what we are at this juncture in history. And we cannot separate ourselves from other African people throughout the world. We can no longer consider ourselves a minority. We might be a minority in certain places, but in the world, we are not a minority. Amen. With 300 million in the Western world, 750 million in Africa, at least 100 million in India, then the South Pacific. We number 1 billion people on the face of this earth. Now you're going to talk about what minority? And yet most of us do not even make the safety pin to hold our child's diaper together. We should call great manufacturing. But to call and to make demands on corporations, when it was the corporation that got you into the predicament that you're in. The seed money from the corporation came from the slave trade. Now you're going to ask him for liberation? Why don't you give a rabbit a piece of lettuce and take it to the brown patch for safekeeping? Makes no sense. We have to distinguish between pan-capitalism and pan-Africanism. Now, capitalism right now is programming white people out of jobs. So what do you expect? Downsizing. Getting rid of excess, sending the jobs abroad. The same people they're sending these jobs to, making your suits, your dresses, where you can make yourself in any basement or any living room, they can hold a sewing machine. These are the people that say were uncivilized, kooks, everything. Now they're going to those same people to make the automobiles. Profit at any price. The corporation has no loyalty to the country where the corporation is located. You think big money has any loyalty to the United States? Some of them live abroad so they want to pay American taxes and to make most of their money here. Now when are we going to face reality Then when are we going to face leadership and ask, leader, where are you leading me? Now, the aftermath of the parade in Washington, because the whole thing was a Muslim con game, all those Baptists, Dorothy Height, head of the black women, they got more and stronger following than Farrakhan ever had and can get. Why are they following him instead of he following them? The Black Baptist takes in enough money more money than 6 European nations. They don't own a supermarket. Farrakhan has never given account for the $5 million he got from Libya. Did anybody ever count to you for how much money was taken up in Washington? You see almost a sea of green bills in the air and people collecting them. Did anybody ever tell you how many and where is it going to go? They took up $10 a piece for registration. Why is anybody registered to go to Washington? They took up contributions to help on the march. Rest assured, Malcolm died broke, but Farrakhan never would have died broke. That movement, and I grant each religious movement to be whatever it can be, is now a religious parasite on our community. This might hurt the brothers, but I'm tired of the lies about Islam being the black man's true religion, which is a lie. The black man had religion long before Islam, thousands of years. Arabic being the mother tongue of blacks. We spoke languages before the Arabs existed as a people. They're a mixture of Europeans and Western Asians and Africans. They're the bastard children of bastard children. Their intention in Africa never been good. The movement in the Sudan and Mauritania now is the worst, reintroducing a slave trade. Farrakhan didn't have one word to say against it. How can he say a word against it when he's bought and paid for? 5 million would shut his mouth, and it did. What if we're going to look realistically at what we have to do and realize sometimes we want to count our friends. We don't need 5 fingers, and sometimes we don't even need 1. You want to count your friends, you need a mirror. You see who's looking back at you. That's my friend and that's my partner. And the two of us going to start a revolution. But the revolution starts with you. The religion starts with you. The spiritual way of life. Recognizing the God and the goodness inside of yourself and walking in the light of that goodness.
That's right.
You betray no one. We look at 2 African religions that I'm a part of, and I don't try to sell it to other people. We have no missionaries. If you can't come to it voluntarily, that's your problem. You're living among the God people. I accepted their spiritual way of life, their belief system. That belief system is based on an understanding of nature. They don't believe in a God in the sky. They believe in God in a great body of water, influenced by the sun. The strength of the world is in water and in the sun. And in teaching very often, I tell my students, the basis of civilization and culture rests with the presence of three things: land, water, and women. And the first thing some students say, why women? How could you get into the world without one? You got a womb? You ever seen a pregnant man? Or if you do without water long enough and you're dead. Water takes care of the plant life. Land, the basis of culture, basis of nationhood. Now look at this. Look at Nelson Mandela. When he came to power, whites controlled 87% of the land. They still control 87% of the land. What has changed except the chauffeur? Whites still control that country? Control the wealth of the country? Control the minds of the country? Control the treasury of that country? The first thing he needed to do, and had he done this, he'd been dead anyway. Tell the Europeans, you brought no land here, so there's no land here that belongs to you. We don't choose half of it. We choose all of it. And the resources that God and nature put in the ground on my land belongs to me, and I don't buy no mine, no gold mine, no diamond mine from you. I take it.
That's right.
Had he taken that revolutionary stand, he wouldn't have lasted a week. He's a compromise. He's a holding action till the real revolution starts. They're going to get rid of him along with the whites because he ain't that much different. Was he controlled in South Africa? I don't know. I couldn't really control the chauffeur. We have to be real. Stop playing games with ourselves. Stop lying to ourselves. We have to study how different people save themselves under different circumstances in history. We should also go over the tapes of Amos Wilson. If you got them, keep them. If you got some you want to get rid of, I'll talk to you. Such a clear voice, working themselves into exhaustion. Why do we let this happen? If we can't preserve the minds that chart a way for us, then it's time to stop talking about freedom and liberation. There was a time when we had professional thinkers. A man's job was just to think. You brought him his shoes, sandals, food, clothing. All he had to do is to think. If you want something thought out, you go to the thinker. And those societies had no jail, not even a word that meant jail. No social institutions. No insane asylums, because no one went insane. But you're going to go insane in a cooperative society where you got everything everybody else has got. or you're the collective owner of the wealth of the country. Well, a man would go out and kill a deer. He would no more say, this is mine, than he would fly. He'd bring it to a central place for all the people who want deer meat can get their share. Family with 6 children get a little more than that for 2 children. There's no argument about it. Ain't nobody there to zoom about it. It's a collective society. What made Egypt great? What made Ethiopia great? What made the great Niger Valley states great at their best? Collective discipline and high morality. This is what we have to go back to. There are certain things we don't do because we have a high morality. Those things are beneath what we do. We must go back to a concern for ourselves. We must stop worshiping our enemy's culture. And another clinker of sensitivity. We must get off the OJ syndrome, stop worshiping our enemies' women. The road to Africa does not start between an alien woman's legs. The road to Africa starts with self-realization. You don't have to go to Africa to be African. Africa is where you are. You take it around with you. And you help Africa by helping yourself. You help Africa by putting your family back together again. You help the black woman by coming to her defense when that's justifiable. Now, if what was said in Washington was true, there shouldn't be a crack dealer in a single black community in this country right now. It's been almost a month now. The men are back home. Everything that was there is still intact. Crack houses next door to the church. What was said in Washington is valid now. A lot of men should go back home and make amends, but there's a whole lot of women need to make some amends too. I mean, this is no one-way street. I know women who deserted the families, deserted the husbands, and left them with the children, and no husband who raised them right straight on up. She never came back. But he never left them. It's not all negative on one way. Once we understand that we have to have a love and an appreciation for ourselves, we should appreciate a man like Booker T. Washington who was not an Uncle Tom because we didn't understand it. Self-reliance. You live in a community with brick houses, why not own a brick yard? Build for yourself. Protect yourself, beginning with your family. There shouldn't be a hungry person among us. I don't mean we should feed locusts. We didn't feed locusts in an African society. For an African society, you had no problem because everybody worked at something. Even the man who mixed the paint for the mass in the dance, he was a worker. He related to the totality of the society. The drum maker related to the society. He got fed. Now we're going to call him a local in this society. You didn't make no damn drum, you ain't done no work. But the drum goes with the society. And the man who makes them is part of the culture of society. Once we love ourselves, we will change ourselves. Once we put that together, give ourselves back the humanity we lost in slavery and colonialism. And once we change ourselves, we will understand we have the capacity to change the whole world. Thank you very much.
Sisters and brothers, Dr. Clarke will entertain your questions shortly.
50th anniversary of the Fifth Pan-African Congress. The Fifth Pan-African Congress set in motion the ideas and the personalities for the African independence movement. Some of the original conveners are still alive. It was currently called by Nkrumah, George Patmore, Zeke from Nigeria, Peter Abrams of Jamaica, Amy Ashwood Garvey. But the fifth was the most meaningful. And when I arrived in England, I arrived in the midst of controversy because there was some left, black and whites who wanted a separate conference, an integrated conference. And there was some people from the right who wanted mostly interracial marriage, Caribbeans with English, and who wanted to share, that Africa needed to share. So we had to get across the point that Africa would share power with Europeans only to the extent that Europeans wanted to share power with Africans. But the conference was, this conference, it had from 400 to 500 people. It was quite successful. Nathan Shamrari of Zimbabwe, among the officials, had one colonel from Uganda, who wasn't impressive, like most military men are not that impressive anyway. And there's only one bad speech. The young man from Nigeria was excellent. Jake Carruthers, good. I made the opening speech and the closing speech. And I dealt with the structure of an African state still to come and the training of people for a state. And I said that no African in the 21st century should be lacking in science and technique, training in science and technology. But the only kook speech made, only really bad speech was made by the black Hebrew Israelites, whoever they are. They brought in God in every corner. I mean, some of them live in Israel, right under the Arab gun. Israel gave them a community right in the way of the Arabs. The Arabs invaded, had to knock them off first. And I took them to task to call themselves black Hebrew Israelites. The Hebrew faith is international. It don't belong to the Europeans who call themselves Jews. There are people of the Hebrew faith in India and China and throughout the world who do not refer to themselves as Jews. But these kooks, and they were so bold because there's a group of them in England, they leave in the auditorium and they were taking the slide projector and all the machines and thought, said, brother, you crazy or something? You won't wait to use the slide projector, they're just taking it with them. But the representative, Dr. Scobie, couldn't come because his daughter had some difficulty with a visa back to Paris. But everybody else invited showed up. And this conference was financed by Ugandans, Caribbean people, put together with their funds. $30,000, they were only $6,000 in debt when I left. When they would weather it, they had pledges, you know. When all the pledges come in, they will be able to take care of that. But the significance in this, we talked about nation, not to be assistant to people, but to be all of it. And we got to meet the Caribbean community in England, because a lot of them came from London, and different from Bristol. Caribbean people live all over England now, not just London in that area. They came from all these areas. What impressed me most is, it's refreshing to say this. I thought the conduct of that children absolutely magnificent. No loud noises, no cursing, no nothing. And see me with some handicap, all trying to help. I never forget one kid came, he's over here, and we can even touch him. And they came up, they touched him, and smiled. One aside, which I must, as for the privilege of, we used a high school, and the British wanted us to use their caterer. And they got offended when we got across the fact that we want African food, Caribbean food. So they charged us for the use of their kitchen. Those ladies made a vegetable patty, spicy, preferable to meat. It was so good. Now, eating patties all over, anytime I can find a Caribbean restaurant, I ain't never tasted patties that good. So, I like indigenous foods. I like my people's food wherever they go. About 6 kinds of Caribbean food in Miami. There's some from the Bahamas and some from further over. But the conference was good because it brought us together, the students and refugees from the Sudan there. It was good to talk to them. Refugees from Mauritania. So I don't know what people are talking about saying there's no slavery in the Sudan. I know that, but I went back home and dug into the records of Bernard Lewis, an English who's been writing on the Arab history most of his life, and Spencer Trenningham. So the Africans got a case. We made a big deal over apartheid. We made it an international subject. Now the next subject you better be international on, else the Arabs join the Europeans and we conquer Africa. You better be clear on the role of that Arab in Africa. You must separate him from Islam, because a whole lot of you thinking Islam is Arabism. Through Islam, we may fall into an Arab trap and be re-enslaved just on the basis of being an infidel. I do not divide African people based on whether they're Baptist, Muslim, anything else, or Holy Rollers. I grew up a Baptist Sunday school teacher. I think all African people need to be free and sovereign, no matter what political party they belong to, or whether they belong to anyone at all, or what religion they belong to. I think all of it has to be converted into instrumental of liberation. I met some wonderful African people, and the most interesting thing is to see the beautiful togetherness in the Caribbean community in England, over and above any togetherness I've seen in any of the Caribbean states, and I've visited practically all of them. They realized, because the British is not subtle, they let you know what you wanted there. You came back to work, the work is over, they want you to go home. There's a new spirit. You've got almost 2 generations of Caribbean people born right there. And they said they ain't going no place. They go back to their home for a visit. Got a British passport, gonna keep it. Let me see you drive me away. I did not know that there are literally 3 million Caribbean people in England. Between them and the Africans, 3 million. Add the East Indian to it, you got close to 5 million non-white people in England. The meaning of the conference to me is that while it did not get the support it should have had, it wasn't as international, and nothing was talked about. I think that meeting came on the eve, during the March on Washington, was far more significant than the Million Man March on Washington. We achieved more resolution and commitment to Africa. I'm glad to have attended. I've been in this fight since my late teens, and I'm still in the fight. And there's no use saying I'm tired, but that's not going to take me out of the fight anyway. I'm going to still stay in it. So the fight has become a mission of my life, and the legacy that I hope to leave for others who will continue the fight.
Question? 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 No questions?
Come on, lady.
No, the brother, what do you think about Nigeria?
Nigeria?
With the killing of the brother.
I think Nigeria is an unfortunate disaster in Africa. And when you kill off your thinkers, your poets, your novelists, or drive them away from home, you're killing that glue, that cohesion that holds a nation together. You may not agree with the idealists, but you're going to have to bear with him, because he's still trying to work out something to make a nation better. I think Nigeria had everything necessary to make a great nation. Water, navigable rivers, good forests, good working class. But I think the Western educated Nigerians have turned that country to a den of thieves. Very unfortunate. Nigeria could have been Africa's greatest nation. It is the largest nation in population. The Muslims from the north have done no good because they think that anything less than a Muslim, less than dirt. The nation is a mixture of cultures, people, religions, ways of life. And that's real richness is in that diversity, putting that diversity together, making it work.
Mr. Clarke, being from Haiti, I'm going to ask you a question on the Irish state government. What's your take on the condition under which Irish state agreed to return to Haiti? And
I think I saw no other way he could return to Haiti except some kind of compromise. I don't agree with the compromise. I thought Aristide is in a holding action until a better government and a better man takes place. He's too much under the influence of the authoritarianism of the Catholic Church. I don't trust any religion in power because they will not deal with diversity that makes the people rich. I really think that until Haiti turns away from what made it go wrong in the first place, that French Constitution, it's in some serious problems. Haiti and Liberia are the two nations that could have changed the direction of the whole African world. The independence movement would have come a generation early if Haiti had itself together, but Haiti was under America from 1915 or 14 up to 1934. America installed a mulatto elite. The mulatto elite installed an army of thugs that are still there. It is unfortunate. The one dream that I had is that someone give good military training to all the different Haitians living abroad. There are more Haitian doctors in Dakar, in Senegal, than in Port-au-Prince. So you've got Haitian technicians, Haitian educators scattered throughout the world. The condition needs to exist for them to go home and work in peace and make Haiti a great African nation it could have become in the first place.
That's exactly the purpose of the imperialists. That's exactly the purpose of the imperialists, like the United States, to keep
that from happening.
Yeah, to keep all the people which are here to steer the country.
Look, I don't trust nothing that the United States puts together. Nothing.
So, conclusion to your answer, Aristide hasn't betrayed.
I think he's a temporary holding action. It might be the best we can get under the present circumstances, but don't forget, we got to improve the circumstances. I detect a sense of arrogance in him, and that arrogance comes from Catholic training.
The fact that he got ousted from the civilian order that he used to belong to is no conclusion for his allegiance to the Catholic Church?
Well, he still has an allegiance to it. You're right, and he should question it, but I question what he will. But I wouldn't be shocked, and I'm not above advocating it. Haiti should go back to pure juju. Rule through an African culture. Go back to its African South. Pull that great African strength together. Sooner or later, they're going to have to get rid of Aristide and the Catholic Church.
Thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon, Dr. Clarke. I have great respect for you, and I consider you my teacher. I would like to ask you a question about Karenga and Kwanzaa, because I heard you on Sister Lee's show one day, and you didn't quite come out with what I think you really wanted to say.
Karenga is a clever phony. I didn't say he's dumb now. He's a clever phony. He no more gave you Kwanzaa than he gave you air. In the first place, it's supposed to be an American remake of an African harvest ceremony. There are no harvests in Africa in December. It's supposed to replace commercial Christmas. And now it's just as commercial as commercial Christmas. There's just as much hustlerism around Kwanzaa, and he spelled it wrong. He took this ceremony from Tanzania, put Swahili words to it, made you think he gave you something original. He's also a documented and proven police informer. He mutilated black women. The women he mutilated and went to jail for were dark in complexion. The women in his harem are now a light in complexion. His chief woman in his harem is a Mexican with an Afro wig. He's not only got an ego problem, he's got a color problem. His name is Ronald Everett. I talked with his brother at Cornell, who was second-rate teacher and first-rate alcoholic. The whole concept of Kwanzaa was taken from the Arusha Declaration, and part of the Arusha Declaration was modeled after Mao Zedong's concept of Chinese unity. Nothing wrong with that, but it's something wrong with you not doing enough research to realize that Karinga killed several of the tried to destroy the Panther movement. All of this is documented. Our witnesses are still alive. So while he wrote the mission paper for the Million Man March, there was nothing in the mission paper that had been said before it said better. He copied it from other people. Then he makes his speeches and throw out names that excite you. Fannie Lou Hamer said, and I quote, Sheikh Anta Diop said, he don't know none of these people there. He's a moral tramp.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions?
Come on.
Good evening, Dr. Clarke. I had a question about Mali, Ghana, and Songhai. Mali, Ghana, and Songhai.
These were the Ghana, Mali, then Songhai. Songhai was the last of the three great inner West African states before the slave trade.
Right. I had a question about how much Islam had an influence on these empires.
I mean, there's brothers going around saying all these great states were Muslim, which is a lie.
Right.
None of them were solely Muslim. The Muslims destroyed Ghana. Mali, royal family, and some of the politicians were Muslim. When this happened, they declared the entire state Muslim. Songhai was Muslim in administration, but the general population was not Muslim. There's some good simple lessons on this. Edward Bowen's little book, Topics in West African History, is very good. And if you forgive the modesty, a little book I did called African People in World History is a good summary of what happened there. I did a pamphlet called The End of the Age of Grandeur and the Beginning of the Slave Trade. There's a good summary right there. Eleanor Hoffman's book, The Realm of the Evening Star, Morocco and the Land of the Moors, tells you how those nations were destroyed. Lady Lugar's book, A Tropical Dependency, tells you how those nations were built. J.C. DeGraff Johnson's book, African Glory, gives you a good summary of Africa, plus a summary of the West African states. John Jackson has a chapter in his book, Introduction to African Civilization, called The Golden Age of West Africa. So there's no shortage of information as to what happened, when it happened in history. And I don't know, the Muslims assume so much and just announce it as true. It has no basis in truth. Now, Islam is a 7th century AD religion, whether you like it or not, and I'm sorry if you don't like it. I can't do nothing about it. And to say that Islam is the black man's true religion is a lie. To say that Arab is the black man's true language is still another lie. And to say a bigger lie that Adam, God created the first Muslim, his name was Adam, this is the biggest lie. We can live by the truth. The truth isn't that bad. Come on.
Thank you, Dr. Clarke.
Good evening.
Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, Dr. Clarke. How you doing? Dr. Clarke, in your estimation, how do you see or envision us here being able to bring forth new leadership of quality and effectiveness?
Well, you got to first bring forth a leadership that is accountable. The leadership must be accountable to you. A true leader is nothing but a people's messenger. The people must educate themselves in order to give the messenger the right message and change him when he fails to carry out their orders. And to bring about you must ask some serious questions about people and their character, their intent. Either you're a servant of the people or you're not worth being called a leader. I'm tired of people just parasiting on the people in the name of leadership. This is why Farrakhan and Jesse and all of them don't impress me the slightest. I think the last leader that I respected and supported without reservation is Malcolm X.
Yeah. On that note, I think we should thank Dr. Clarke once again and wish him a happy birthday. Happy birthday, Dr. Clarke.